I would imagine it builds a lot of familiarity too, especially in a new brand environment. People aren't used to they don't have familiarity with your product. They don't know what to expect out of the hand feel, out of the fit. So having access in a local store provides that. Welcome to Clothing Culture, a fashion industry podcast at the intersection of technology and innovation. I'm Emily Lane.
And I'm Bret Schnitker. We speak with experts and disruptors who are moving the industry forward and discuss solutions to real industry challenges.
Clothing Culture is produced by Stars Design Group, a global design and production house with more than 30 years of experience. Welcome back to another episode of Clothing Culture. Today, we're at the bar. We like to sit at the bar and have more relaxed conversations when addressing topics that come in from our audience.
And usually a cocktail, but I don't see one. So this is a dry day.
Darn it. Maybe
dry
next time.
June, we call it. Yes.
Well, today we're going to talk about mom and pop shops.
Yeah.
This is something that we actually talk to a lot of new brands that they're really trying to figure out their go-to-market strategy, how they're going to go to market, if they're going to stay directly direct to consumer, or if they're going to be in retailers, and if they're going to be in retailers, is it going to be the big box shops, or is it going to be the mom and pops? And a lot of times we advise that there's a lot of value in those mom and pops. So let's break that down today. Bret, let's begin by talking about the relevance of mom and pops shops in today's wholesale strategy.
Yeah, there's been a lot of bandwidth talking about the Goliaths like Amazon and direct to, home delivery and, massive, huge retailers. But mom and pops are a really vital component of our kind of supply chain, especially, when we're having conversations about new designers entering the marketplace. Big retailers, they're not pioneering as much as, they used to. There's not, pop-ups like there used to be. These big stores want the demand to be developed, the customer demand to be developed, and then them be the conduit for customers buying en masse. And so mom and pops, while over the years, there's been, ebbs and flows. We've seen closings in mom and pops, which have been, kind of sad. The ones that remain have really developed and grown into a very viable opportunity today as we talk about experiential retailing, right? They create hyper-local reach. They have awesome community roots. I think there's personalized service that doesn't exist. And I think consumers today really like that. They're this trusted voice in the neighborhoods. A lot of people come in, ask a lot of questions, and that does not exist in these, massive big boxes.
Yeah, absolutely. Very personalized and a part of the community.
Yeah, for sure.
How can working with local boutiques build long-term brand strategy?
Well, we talk about this whole care that local boutiques put into the successful ones, right? They curate with care. You walk in, there's these great rooms with wonderful experiences and displays, and, they tell stories. The real good ones tell these awesome stories. And so brands that are brought into those space, there's this like credibility by association. I think over time, these placements build emotional resonance. There's this community kind of value that the brands that work with local boutiques are getting better opportunity to show their product because there's people telling their stories, I think, more effectively.
I would imagine it builds a lot of familiarity too, especially in a new brand environment. People aren't used to they don't have familiarity with your product. They don't know what to expect out of the hand feel, out of the fit. So having access in a local store provides that. Yeah,
and it's kind of it's certainly a complicated space because we talk about multi-level multi-channel marketing. They don't always stay and exist in mom and pops. And that's the whole kind of challenge that exists as brands get bigger. Do they expand past that? But I'll tell you, mom and pops, curated retailers today are launching more of the names than some of these other groups.
You talk about multi-channel or omni-channel, and it is so important because there's advantages to each one of those verticals.
Yeah.
Are there specific advantages that are only aligned with smaller retailers versus some of these Goliaths that you've talked about?
The obvious, like we've talked about, personalized customer relationships. They have mailing lists, they have customer preference profiles, they know what customers are looking for. So as new brands come in, they can assign them directly to a specific customer need. The customer comes in, there's a much faster decision making when that happens. I think, again, the elevated storytelling, curated environments, they take risks on niche brands because they want to be unique, where bigger boxes aren't. And then I think, there's a whole conversation about authenticity today. We talk about authenticity and storytelling. I think that our market appreciates authenticity, and there is this natural authenticity that occurs in these smaller areas.
Okay, so let's talk to a smaller brand or a new brand at this particular moment. What advice would you give them with regards to nurturing a meaningful relationship with one of these small businesses?
Well, I think you got to have a nice network of small businesses. One individual probably won't make or break your day. That's the thing that's going to spend you're going to spend some time doing. You've got to nurture relationships with 200 of them, right? Or more. But, constant communication is important. I think today we live in a world of transactional automated emails, and that doesn't work for those groups for sure. I think co-branded events, walking in the pop-ups, the old days of pop-ups, curating events within each one of these local mom and pops, they appreciate it. They have an event that calls more customers into the store, have a champagne, evening or day, and I think that benefits both. Flexible terms. So mom and pops don't have the large wallets that some of these other groups do. So if you're pioneering a brand and you want to have more people take risks on your product, first, if it's right, they're good merchants. Most of the ones that are around have become really good merchants. They can tell a brand that will sell versus won't. But offering them unique terms, extended terms if you can, it allows them to, put more product in, allows them to have more conversations. It doesn't put pressure on them to pay right away so that it's sort of consignment. There's a whole lot of conversation about consignment in our industry. And there are groups that only kind of work on consignment, but extended terms help manage some of the pressure on cash flow that the smaller brand might have and the store itself.
When in working in a consignment environment, do you have to worry about kind of the wear and tear of product?
Always do. There's always a percentage of that. There's theft and loss. Sometimes there's contracts you can sign to make sure that the stores themselves are responsible for the loss themselves. But, consignment's tough because things can season out. They can trend out, And so I think extended terms kind of makes a little bit more sense, but you have to feel each one out. You have the relationship of the brand to the retailer is an important one. And so I think sorting those things out are good.
Well, the strategy that you talked about of having a pop-up or an event, if you are going into a consignment environment, having events and things like that drive people to come in and see your product and try it on would certainly be more productive.
Well, and you get immediate feedback, right? You have clients that are trying things on, you listen to the feedback. And I think, ultimately the goal is celebrate the success with the mom and pops as that feedback rolls in and purchases start coming. They get excited too if they see there's big boxes talk a lot about the real estate, the turn on real estate, the amount of dollars per square foot that a rack or a section will turn, and they have metrics and standards for making sure that they meet those minimums. It's down to a science. But mom and pops have that same thing. It may not be as sophisticated as the large stores, but it's important for them to see stuff moving.
Yeah.
And so, you've got to be pretty intentional about those relationships.
I remember a mom and pop store that I used to frequent as a young person many years ago now. And I remember seeing the wide variety of brands. This was an outdoor store, and seeing things that were really designed for that audience, these real people who are hiking and things like that. And I was so amazed by that product. And now looking back, this was 25 years ago. Looking back, these are serious names that are now pillars in the outdoor apparel industry, new at that time, but much lesser known. Are there some kind of amazing success stories of brands really leveraging these relationships to gain worldwide traction? Do you have any kind of references of some of those success stories?
As you mentioned, there are a lot of brands that have used this strategy to launch. Names like Patagonia, Mountain Khakis, Stussy with surfwear. These concentrated lifestyle shops, mountain towns that have lifestyle shops, et cetera. There are a number of brands that have really been built and are very loyal to those mom and pops because they're elevated experiences. They've built those brands and they stay with them. Same with surf shops, same way.
It feels really connected to your customer. Yeah. So what are some of those logistical challenges that you might face in working with smaller businesses as opposed to maybe some of those that are just wired?
Yeah, I would say first, like we talked about, the number of businesses required to connect with, it's super important, right? You've got 200 or 1,000 you got to connect with. If you're a small brand and you're kind of working through those details, how do you get yourself to all of those different retailers and have relationships with them? Those can be challenging. I think for sure, smaller order quantities are kind of the name of the game with these mom and pops. They, along with that curated experience, they have smaller quantities, so they sell out, they create demand.
Part of that is because their space is limited often, right? You're kind of fighting for rack space or shelf space.
A lot of them want to have a pretty wide breadth of assortment, so people buy multiples so they don't go really deep. But they expect, in many cases, you to be able to back them up in case there's a runner and fill into that. So managing inventory levels are certainly there. And then, as we talked about earlier, mom and pops have gone through different levels of health and challenge. And, cash flow can be a challenge with those groups too. So you have to be, sensitive to credit terms. You have to be sensitive to payment, timelines and all of that stuff for sure.
What are some smart solutions for helping to manage things like replenishment or inventory?
It's tough when you're a new brand because it's hard to forecast the level of demand. So there's going to be a period of certain volatility because you don't have a crystal ball. But things to help launch and establish a better record with those mom and pop shops is all about making it easier for them. So creating pre-packs that have a bell-curved size scale, focusing on the sizes that sell more readily in depth and have less that sell less readily, right, within certain markets. That certainly helps. Drop shipping is most of them would love that. A lot of brands will have the mom and pop actually pay for the cost of coming from a warehouse. But if you offer drop ship, they feel like that's an added value and a service. We talked a little bit about this before. Replenishment is big on core basics with these mom and pops. If they take off and they start running and they've got a lot of customers that really like that, they certainly want to make sure that they can get backed up and delivered timely,
right,
for
because
sure.
it's their reputation on the line also.
Yeah. Definitely. Digital B2B platforms, if you make it easy for them to sign on, put their orders in. There's a lot of newer programs that help connect brands with retailers and make things easier. And then, you want to be flexible. They'll go through difficulties. If you give them opportunity or you give them grace or flexibility at times, loyalty's built and they'll give it back to you. It's a
That's
real
great.
people business for
Yeah.
sure.
Well, I like to think when you're doing this business right, you are thinking about people. You know,
Yeah.
you're building product for people. You're building a community with people, and certainly a partnership with these mom and pop shops is very relationship based. Are there additional values that can really be fostered with these kinds of partnerships?
Yeah. I mean, we all talk about buy local, right?
Mm-hmm.
Locality is important. I think that they, for the most part, care about craftsmanship. They care about longer term. They're not into fast fashion as much. So elevated experiences. And in turn, when you have better product lasting longer, selling higher, more elevated product, not buying at such a rapid pace, you encourage sustainability. They're open to, you know, slower fashion. They want a bigger investment with that for sure.
That's great. Well, thank you. Do you have any other thoughts to share at the bar before we wrap this up and actually do get a cocktail?
Yeah, I would just say there are in our experiences with mom and pops across the nation in different categories that we've worked with, they're a wonderful group of people. It is an ecosystem that should not go away. It is challenged. There's a lot of people trying to figure out other solutions as we have this multi-channel marketing and people think it's convenient. But boy, the experience of walking into some of these curated shops, it's just wonderful. You get to see product you don't see everywhere else in mass. They really care about that experience. So I would say support your mom and pop, support local.
I love that. Well, thank you for those thoughts, and thank you for joining us here at the bar today. Don't forget to subscribe to stay apprised of upcoming conversations.